Hey guys, it's Mallory Dunphy here with Eric and Josh. I am leading the call tonight. I'm so excited. It's our first call for the discussion of the five major pieces to the life puzzle. We are, just to introduce ourselves, if you're watching this for the first time, we're the Live the Movie crew. And we're basically just a group of people that decided to get together for this thing called the Platinum Membership to basically hold each other accountable for different goals that we have in our personal lives, our work lives, our financial lives, any area of life we have goals in, we're going to hold each other accountable for those different things. And one of the things that we decided to do as a team is to read a book together and discuss it and hold each other accountable for the action steps that we all decide to take from reading the book. So that's basically what this crew is all about. We're really excited to have you watching if you're watching from in the future or currently watching live. But I just want to take a quick second to say hi to Eric and Josh. How are you guys doing today?
Good. How you doing?
Doing excellent. I'm
I'm
excited. Today was warm in Rhode Island. I don't know about you guys, but it was super warm today. It was beautiful.
yeah, I was warm where we are. I'm excited to talk about this book. It's some cool principles to learn and definitely reiterate other things I've learned. But one of the cool things about like how we're doing the book club, reading a book a month, is many of the similar concepts might be similar. In terms of the principles, but when you take it from a different angle each time, they kind of build upon each other, and maybe one person's approach connects with you better than someone else, or it just reinforces what you know, which ultimately the objective is to then apply the principles from the book into our lives and into the goals that we've selected for ourselves in the group.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree because sometimes for something really to set in and for you to actually want to apply it in your life is to learn about it more than once and talk about it after you learn about it with other people, because it's one thing to read a book, it's another thing to actually talk about it and talk about what you learn and try to explain it in a way that it makes sense to you to somebody else. And in doing that, you start to think about different ways that you actually will apply it instead of just reading it and saying that you read the book just to read the book. So it's pretty cool. Um, One thing we always start out with is a little bit of recognition. So, Josh, I want to jump to you. Do you have any updates on your interviews? Have you had any more interviews for the position that your dream position? Or
I had one
submitted any
today.
applications?
Yeah, I had an interview today on campus with the New England College of Optometry. It was
Yeah,
awesome. So
that's
yeah,
that's
that's awesome.
awesome.
So
That's awesome. So Josh, one of his goals is to be accepted into his dream job, which is explain what your dream job is, Josh.
my goal is to be a director of student activities at a college at some point.
Yeah,
Right now I'm interviewing for college jobs and trying to get the foot in the door.
yeah, getting your foot in the door is the most important thing, and you know what? You're putting the work in, so it's definitely going to pay off. So he has done one interview this week. So another cool part of this platinum membership, and you'll have to click the button below to learn more about it if you really want to know the details, but we keep a point system periodically just to kind of motivate us to and hold each other accountable for the different goals that we have and action steps that we can take. So we have a few different categories that we can earn points in. One of the categories is to hit some milestones with our goals. So the reason I'm kind of keeping a tally of what Josh has done so far is just to kind of keep a tally of that point system so that in the future, when once we basically keep track of those points to kind of quarterly touch base with everybody to see, all right, who has done this so far for different goals, but also if there's a few other categories along with that too. One of them being the book club. So participating in actually reading the book and joining these calls get you some points, and the rewards for the points are so cool. So again, click the button below and you will be able to learn a little bit more about the point system and the different things that you could earn as a platinum member group, as a platinum membership member. um, So that is that. I know Eric and I both have some financial savings goals that we don't really keep track of every week because we keep track of those more on a monthly or even quarterly basis. So I'm not really going to go over those much today. We'll probably touch base and talk about those a little bit more in the future. But I really am excited to dive right into this book and talk about what I learned from the intro and the first chapter, because a lot of this stuff, actually a lot of this stuff relates to what I talked about last week on last week's call, which is kind of cool, because it was a little bit of preparation for if you hadn't started the book yet and you started the book with the right mindset. It kind of reiterated the importance of having a good mindset. So I'm just going to dive right into some of the points that I have about the book. The intro, what I love about Jim Rohn is that he doesn't claim to be a true expert in anything. He basically says in the intro that there's no way for him to say that these 5 major, pieces to the life puzzle that he describes in the book are the be-all, end-all of how to live a happy and successful life. But what he does claim is that through his life experiences, these are the 5 pieces to this life puzzle that he's referring to that really stick out to him as being the most influential for living a happy and successful life. So yeah, there's tons of books out there that review, how to live a happy and successful life, and they might go over some different points or some similar points with some points added. But he doesn't claim that this is like set in stone to be the only way to live a happy and healthy life. So he makes that really clear, which I like, because it kind of takes the pressure off of him and the pressure off you as a reader to say, okay, what can I learn from this book, and what else, what other books can I read that have, some similar philosophies or similar pieces of advice that I can actually use and implement into my life right away with the goal of living a happy and healthy life. But for you as a reader to understand that this isn't like the only way to live a happy and healthy life is really important. So that's basically the introduction that he went over, or the point in the introduction that he went over in a major way. But the first life puzzle piece, I guess you could call it, is philosophy. So if you have some notes, or if you don't, pause this video and go grab a pen and paper, because you're going to want to take some notes. If you haven't got the book yet, you got to get the book. It's the 5 major pieces to the life puzzle by Jim Rohn. The front has a tree on it and a little puzzle piece. It's pretty cool. And it's pretty amazing. Oh, Eric has a different version of it. But this first chapter on philosophy, like I said, it kind of relates back to what we talked about last week on the call. And the first point that he makes is how our personal philosophy is formed. So all of us have, grown up in a different environment, and our environment does have a lot to do with how we live our life today. So if, for example, somebody grew up in an environment where maybe their parents dealt drugs and they just lived in the projects, chances are they could end up, following that path in life just because of what they were surrounded by all their life. But you also hear stories of people who grow from those experiences and move on and do amazing things, that are outside of that environment. And both of those examples are all based on the philosophy and how, the philosophy of somebody is formed. So a quote from the book, a direct quote from the book, says, "Our philosophy comes from what we know and from the process of how we came to know all that we currently know." I'll repeat that. Our philosophy comes from what we know and from the process of how we came to know all that we currently know. So Jim Rohn gives examples like from school, from friends, from any associates you have at work, media influences. Media these days and technology is a huge influence to our lives. From at home, like what your home life is like, and also from the streets, what you learn from the streets, and from books, which is really cool because the process of reading and learning and implementing, what you learn, it forms your philosophy in a positive way if you read some positive books that can help influence that. And then finally, the process of listening and observing. So one of the points that we make on these calls is that we want to teach each other and learn from each other the different philosophies that we all have, that really make us successful, because that's the best way. That's the best thing about a group like this, is to have us, able to get together once a week and just bounce ideas off each other and share what went well for us this week, or what we think we could improve on for next week. And the whole accountability is a big part of that, but it also helps with our philosophy in general, just about our life. The analogy that Jim Rohn gives in the book is, our personal philosophy is like the set of a sail. And I love this example. It's like if you're on a ship in the middle of the ocean. Let's say we're all on our own ships, our life ships, in the middle of the ocean. Eric is holding up the book with that quote, and he actually underlined it, which is kind of cool. But so what we can't control, as while we're sailing our ship, is the different storms that come and the wind, the direction of the wind. But what we can control is how we set our sail. So if we have a specific destination that we're trying to get to, and there's a bunch of storms and waves and wind that's trying to hold us back, we can always set our sail in the right direction to be able to get to our destination, no matter what. And yeah, if you're going to go through a storm, it might take a little bit longer to get to your destination, which is the beauty of life, because we all go through major challenges in life, and we still end up where we're supposed to be. But a quote from the chapter is, "The winds of circumstance blow on us in an unending flow that touches each of our lives, and the way each of us thinks makes the major difference in where each of us arrives. So when the winds change, we must change." So with the sailing example, we got to set our sails in the direction that we want to go, especially if the winds make a huge change. So the winds being circumstances in our life that are basically out of our control. I don't know who this quote is by, but somebody said, it doesn't matter. Life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond, or 90% what happens to you, 10% how you respond. Something like that. One of those. Oh, sorry. That's super loud. I got a new phone the other day, and I guess I haven't figured out how to set. There we go. I set it on silent. But when the winds change, we must change. I have a message. Hold on. Eric, did you want to move the camera down? Can you see my face?
No, that was for Josh. There's a new one that says hello. I was pretending I was answering the phone.
Oh. Sorry. Yeah, Josh, we can see your face now. That's good. I was like, wait, I can see my face just fine. Well, actually, this is probably a good time to stop. I know I've gone through a couple points that he has made in the book so far. Do you have anything to add, Eric or Josh?
Yeah, I think the point that you brought up with the analogy of setting the sail, believe it or not, is actually the #1 principle in your entire life. And what's interesting is, no one's actually asked me this question, so I'll ask it to myself, is what is the one thing that you set out to get out of going to all of the seminars and events and things that I went to learn all kinds of different concepts? And the one thing that I went to learn is that what you just said is actually a true statement, and that there's not circumstances that are outside of that. So I'll give you an example. So this is an example of a mentor of mine, which I think is also a mentor of both of you. His name's Hal Elrod. He actually sold Cutco. He's one of the best keynote speakers in the country. He's got 2 best-selling books. A great guy, and he's very influential, and I talk to him every once in a while. But the first time I ever heard him speak, I had just started out selling Cutco, and for those of you watching, all 3 of us have sold Cutco in the past. And one of the things that the first time I heard his story, to explain the story really quick, basically when he was 19 years old, he was selling Cutco, and he was coming home from a team meeting, got in a head-on car crash, was pronounced dead, and then came back to life and had all these injuries, and basically worked his way back to health, even though they said it would never happen, he wouldn't walk again, all this stuff. So how this relates to setting the sail is he tells the story about how, like, from the second he realized, came out of his coma and all this stuff, he had this attitude that I'm going to be happy no matter what, and I'm going to move forward, I'm going to make progress, I'm going to overcome this challenge. Now, the way Hal wanted you to take that in his talk is that you can overcome anything, and with the right attitude and right philosophy, which is the first two pieces of the life puzzle, you can do the same thing. I, because of just where I was in my own space in my head at the time, actually went the opposite way and said, I feel even more bad for myself because I don't have that same mentality that he has, whether he was born with that mentality or he's prone to have that mentality. So I actually went on a search when I went to all these events to try to see, is it really true that if you set the sail and you set up the rules for yourself where you win no matter what as long as you give effort, is that really true? Or is there circumstances of things that happen in life where someone you care about dies, someone you get out of a relationship, there's a tragedy, there's this happen, there's that happen, and over the course of going on these events, I saw that no situation that humans have been in has someone not been able to change their personal philosophy and attitude to actually make that change. And once you see that, now all of a sudden you know that if you set up the right rules, and I'm using the word rules, but philosophy, if you set up the right philosophy and attitude for yourself, you cannot lose at the game of life no matter what happens. It's actually in your control whether your life is a happy life or a sad life. Most people say, well, I think my life's going to be a good life because I'm married and I have kids and I'm making this much money, I'm doing all this stuff. But if everything were to fall apart or things were to go wrong, so they're playing it off of the fact that things are going well right now or they're making progress toward going well versus the fact that it's the rules that they come up with about how they feel about things that determine it, or the philosophy. So that principle, although it's one point in this book, is actually the biggest thing that I've ever learned in all this, that statement is actually true, because I've been to events with people from 100 countries and every religion and every background, all this stuff, and seen them change in a matter of hours, change their attitude and philosophy when hours ago they were thinking about giving up, and they change. And once you see that, then you say, okay, well, things are pretty good for me, and even if everything goes wrong, I'm not saying it'll be easy, but it's in my power to determine my philosophy and attitude and follow through on that. So, and one last little tidbit just to mention our masterminds. All of us here on the screen were at Mastermind in Boston a couple weeks ago, and one of the things we did is we watched Tony's new movie, I'm Not Your Guru, Tony Robbins, and he basically showed people that were in dire situations, and he gave them the tools so that they could change their own philosophy and their own attitude to actually be able to move forward in their life. So just wanted to add that in. So that's the biggest thing I got out of it. If a little later on you want me to hop in, I did underline some other stuff, but that was definitely the biggest thing from the first chapter.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I just think it's so important to understand that we do have control over our happiness every day, and just because we don't yet have something materialistic or maybe the job that we want yet doesn't mean, and Josh actually made a really good point about this at the Mastermind, is we don't really have to have everything that we want to be happy on a day-to-day basis, and we have the choice to wake up and say, thank you, God, for this new day. Or you could say to yourself, oh, God, it's another day. So you have the choice of those two different thoughts in the morning. And Josh, you unmuted yourself. Did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, there was one thing that I got from from the intro that really kind of stuck out to me, and one of the things he said was, in the end, our lives will not be judged by the things that we began, but by the things that our effort and resolve have brought to a successful conclusion. And I just thought it was really important to me because, it's very easy to start doing something, but it's really hard to finish it. And so, one of the things that we've always learned in a lot of talks and through Cutco and all that sort of stuff is always to finish what you started. And it just it kind of hit me a little bit just to know that's really the principle that kind of guides our lives and shows who we really are in the end.
Yeah, I think it's a type of discipline that we have to really follow through with our goals. And I think the point that you made about finishing something that you started, I think um, one of the things actually Jim Rohn probably talks about this later in the book, but just about being flexible enough to make some changes, being consistent in your action, but also being flexible enough to make some changes along the way to get you closer to that end result that you really, really desire. So, but definitely finishing what you start is a huge disciplinary thing that we can all learn from. So that is, I mean, those are some great points, guys. I'm just like blown. It's funny because, like Eric said, this is just one small point and part of the book, but there's so much more to it. There's so much more depth we can cover just based on this one small point, which I love. So I'll move on to the next point that Jim Rohn makes. This is actually one of my favorites because it's one thing to learn about the different facts and things like that, but it's another thing to learn about the how-to. So he also talks about how to develop a powerful personal philosophy, which is great because sometimes the how-to is all we really need to know to be able to move forward. And if you do have a strong enough why, the how will come about. It doesn't matter what the end result is, the how will always appear if you really desire something strongly enough. But so what he says in the book is the best way to establish a new and powerful personal philosophy is to begin with an objective review of the conclusions that we've drawn about life. So if you think about the different things and beliefs that you have about your current life and your the lifestyle that you currently live, some of the conclusions that we've made for ourselves are working for us, and some of them are actually working against us. The biggest example that he gives in the book, which is a great example, is if somebody thinks, let's say somebody's working a job and they think that they are underpaid for what they're actually doing. So the duties that they have don't are worth more than what they're being paid. So if he thinks that that's not fair and that's just his personal philosophy, he might start putting less effort in at work with the mindset of it's not fair that I'm getting paid this, so I'm not going to work as hard. I'm going to only do the amount of work that is equal to the amount of pay that I'm currently getting. Where is that going to get him in the future? Probably not far. If he has the goal of staying in that same job forever and ever and ever, making the same amount of pay forever and ever and ever, that's fine for him to do that and think that way. However, if he changed his personal philosophy and started to think that, if I'm going to be able to earn more money, I'm going to have to work a lot harder than I am and do, put in more effort than I am with the goal of getting a promotion and getting, and eventually earning the amount of money that he thinks he deserves. So you can see there's two different ways of looking at that one simple situation. So if you start to think about what your own values are, what your own beliefs are about your current life and your lifestyle, one of the things that I've recently had to sort of change is the belief that earning money is difficult and takes hard work. Because with that philosophy and that belief, what do you think happens when I go out to earn money? It ends up being hard and hard work. If I simply change my mindset and my philosophy to be that, earning money is easy, money flows to me whenever I really need it. And once I started doing that, I started seeing some money come in that I didn't really expect, and it was really surprising that just one simple philosophy shifted my actual reality, which is kind of cool. The next point in the book is the importance of new information. So when you get new information, it's important to register it in a way that will benefit you in the future. So getting the information that success and happiness require and getting it accurately is essential. So some people will promote things that maybe make sense to them for why they're happy and successful. Like somebody might say, well, I'm happy because I have a Lamborghini. But that might not be the definition of happiness for somebody else. So, like I said, getting the information that it takes and that it requires to be happy and successful, getting the accurate information is what's most important. And there's an abundance of information to go around. You can learn from your own personal experiences. One of the quotes that Jim Rohn says in the book is, one way to learn to do something right is to actually do it wrong and learn from it. Learn from an outside voice. That's another way to take in new information, and that's why I love this mastermind group, because we're able to learn from each other and bounce ideas off each other that we might not think of on our own. We can learn from other people's experiences with failure. So if we witness somebody fail, or we learn from their story of failure, we should all be students of failure, because some of those examples that people tell us about are examples to be avoided, and they should serve as a warning sign for somebody to avoid, and should not be emulated. So if somebody tells you a story of what they did wrong and what they learned from it, we can learn from that as well, and learn not to do the same exact thing. Some of my favorite pieces of advice come from a story of, hey, this is what I did when I completely sucked and I failed, and this is what I do differently now. Don't ever do what I did. Because those are some of the examples that we can learn the most from. And the fourth way to take on new information and gain new information is from other people's successes too. Success leaves clues. If we follow successful people, and especially if we have a specific goal in mind, and what you want to do is follow somebody who's already achieved that ahead of you. So, for example, if somebody is in a, if it's a fitness goal that you have, and let's say you have a goal to lose a certain amount of weight, or to be able to run a certain amount of miles. Let's say you want to run a marathon. Wouldn't it make sense to learn the success story from somebody who's already run the marathon instead of somebody who has never maybe ran a mile before in their life? So things like that, you want to learn from success stories of people who've already achieved what you want to achieve, because you're going to learn so much more from those people, and you're going to get to your goal a lot faster. Capitalize on the power of a positive influence. So this is one of the coolest things that you can do is intentionally surround yourself with positive people who have a positive influence on your life. Jim Rohn says, it is far better to deliberately choose the people we will permit to influence us than to allow the power of the wrong influence to weave its effects on us without our knowledge or conscious choice. So I'll repeat that, because that's a pretty powerful statement. We are all being influenced by somebody, by the way, every moment of our life, whether it's at work, at home, while we're reading a book, or while we're scrolling through Facebook. So it is far better to deliberately choose the people we will permit to influence us than to allow the power of the wrong influence to weave its effects on us without our knowledge or conscious choice. So that's pretty powerful. I'm just going to pause right there, because that's awesome. Become a good observer too. That's one of the points that he makes. Rather than simply getting through the day, why not make a conscious effort to see what you can get from the day? So this kind of relates back to one of the points I made in last week's call, where I said, Eric underlined that too, where I said, set your positive intention for the day. Write it down at night, or write it down in the morning. That's a huge way to make it a point to say, what can I get from the day? So too often, during the week, especially if you have something exciting happening on the weekend, too often, I even find myself doing this a lot, is, I just got to get through this next week, and then, then the weekend will come, and I'll get to do this exciting thing that I have planned. Like this past weekend, we went up to Maine to visit family and to my niece's second birthday party, and yeah, I was really excited about getting up to Maine and doing that for the weekend, but that didn't mean I just chalked up Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday during the week as just getting through those days and not being able to gain anything from those. So it's so important to intentionally say to yourself and set a goal in your own mind that says, I'm going to get something from today. What can I learn from today? What opportunities can I take advantage of today? Because if you're open to taking advantage of opportunities for the day, some opportunities are going to come up that you wouldn't have even noticed before if you didn't have an open mind for them. So become a really good observer throughout the day, so you can put a focus on what you can get from the day instead of just simply getting through the day. Become a good listener. Use the power of selective listening. So I know some of the people that I work with currently like to complain a little bit. So my selective listening ears turn on when I hear them complaining about something that I really don't have any reason to relate to. And that stuff just goes in one ear, out the other. And I really make a point to focus on listening to things and absorbing things that will make a difference in my life instead of something that will maybe bring me down or put me in a negative mood. Read all the books. Yay for book club. I love the fact that we all have chosen some incredible books for the future that we're going to learn from. And I'm going to pause right there because the next point is something that we can actually implement right away. And I think it's something that we really should all implement if you aren't already. But I'll stop right there and see from Eric and Josh. I know I went through a lot just now, but do you guys have anything to add about what you just heard?
It's kind of funny because you talk about like setting your attention before the day, and I think that was one of the things that I did for this interview today because I said to myself, I feel like I'm just being too caught up in the whole mindset that I'm in an interview and I have to behave such and such a way, and I I've been getting a little bit uptight about okay, am I really saying the right things, and am I am I really making an impression on these people? And I just it kind of dawned on me earlier this week that that's not really all that productive. And it's just better for me just to be my best self and not really worry about what I'm saying or what impression that makes on the interviewers because I can't really control how they respond. So it really in the end doesn't really matter to me. So that's that was the mindset that I carried into this interview today, and I think I did a much better job today than the last one that I did because of that. So
Yeah, that's phenomenal that, like you said, you almost took yourself too seriously at points where you wanted to be, the perfect candidate for them, but they don't want perfect. They just want somebody, who will be able to do the job and will be able to have fun doing it most likely. And if that's their goal in their mind, your goal should definitely be, like you said, be the best version of you that you know how to be, and you can't control what they do, how they perceive you, or anything like that. The only thing you can control is you. So that's phenomenal that you were able to do that and set that intention for that interview. So that's great. I love hearing those types of stories. So thanks for sharing that, Josh. Eric, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, this is a great discussion, by the way. This is kind of the point of why we're doing this group, is just to be able to share these ideas and reiterate. I underline the same sentence that you were talking about. A more worthy challenge is to try to get from the day. So what you're going to get out of the day. But another one that I start the whole paragraph about becoming a good listener. It actually says the best way to learn what to say to our children is to listen to them. We should read the books that they're reading and become familiar with the messages they're receiving from a variety of sources. Listening to the information reaching our children will not only increase our awareness of their decision-making process, but it will also help us talk more effectively with our children about what is valuable. Basically, it's like the first step of influence. To know to influence someone, you got to know what already influences them. And sometimes we try to influence people with what would influence us and not what would influence them, and then you wonder why they don't respond. I actually heard someone today in my office talking about that. They had a child, I don't know, maybe getting towards teenage years, and they were wondering why don't they talk to me? They won't tell me what's going on, all this stuff. And it's just one of those things where you got to figure out what it is that influences them. What are they actually listening to? What are they reading? What are they doing? And not to be like, helicopter parent, but to more be like, understanding where they're coming from so that you can see what would actually, influence them. I give you guys the example all the time. If someone out of nowhere basically says, um, you know, says to me, "Oh, exercise is stupid, running is stupid." Like, what are the chances that even if the next thing out of their mouth is something that could make me $1 billion, I'm going to even listen? So that's the challenge that comes with this. People don't listen close enough to actually hear what's important to other people, and then they tell them things that they should do or could do or whatever, and then they don't follow through. And you're like, why didn't they do that? I made a very good argument of why they should go ahead and do that. It's like, well, you don't understand what influences them, even though either directly or indirectly they've told you. You're just not not listening or paying attention. So I just thought that was something valuable.
Yeah, that's awesome. And while you were saying that, we were definitely given two ears and one mouth, so for a reason. I mean, I'm sure for biological reasons, but um, but also from the standpoint of listening before we speak is just so important. And sometimes when we're listening, we're trying to think of what to say instead of actually listening to the person. So sometimes you just gotta sit back and not say anything and not worry about what you're gonna say next or how you're gonna respond or what you're gonna tell them to do or anything like that. Just really, really absorb everything they're saying and listen to what they're saying, and they'll start to open up more about their life in new ways. And that's when you really can start to make an influence on them, is when they open up and really want to share with you what they know and what they care about. And I also wrote down, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that also goes back to being a really good listener. And with the teenage example, it's huge, because some teenagers think, well, my parents don't care because they don't let me do something. But when a parent, like you said, reads the same books they're reading and things like that, that's going to show the teenager that, the parent really wants to get to know them for who they are, instead of, having it almost be like a fight against the teenagers, whatever the teenager wants. So that's kind of a cool. I'm glad you brought that up, because I really did skim over that really quickly. So I think being a good listener, that plays a huge role in a lot of aspects of our life that, we can change. We can implement that right away, at work, at home. And if we just take the time to listen to people instead of, just kind of thinking of things to say and how you're going to contribute to the conversation, it's really important to just listen instead sometimes. So this next point is another thing. My curtain keeps moving. It's not a ghost. My dog keeps going in and out of the room because I think she hears my husband coming home. So that's her moving the curtain. It's not anything, anything creepy. Just FYI. But this next thing I think we can all implement right away too, besides being a good listener, but to keep a personal journal. I started journaling a couple weeks ago after we got home from the mastermind, and it's really helped me record things that I wouldn't normally record, that maybe ideas that I have that that are good ideas, but I just don't get to them right away because I forget about them. So I think keeping a personal journal is so important, and it can just be a journal that you write down things that you experience throughout the day. Like I usually journal at the end of the day, and that's when I also set my intentions for the next day. But I'll journal, what happened today, what went well, what I'm excited about for tomorrow, and things like that. So just keeping a personal journal is huge. And it's a daily journal. And yeah, I miss a day every now and then, but it's good to keep a journal. Eric, you want to add to that journal part?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and for those of you on here, that I wrote a book called The 8 Mandates of Personal Leadership, and Mallory edited it for me, and not only edited it, but brought out the artistic side of it, and actually bringing some of the sections to life. And one of the things Jim Rohn said about journaling is that one of the things it does is that sometimes, because we have so many experiences, that we forget certain experiences, or if we remember them, we just remember facts. This happened, this didn't happen, or whatever, but we don't remember how we felt about it, the emotion behind it, or whatever. So, there's the process of daily journaling, but I was even thinking about the book and the certain specific times in my life that I brought out within the book to be able to teach a principle. And because we wrote about it in a certain way, when I go back and look at that, it's not just an event. It's like, oh my gosh, this is how I was feeling. Here's the change I made, and all these things have happened since then. And that actually will drive you to move forward and take more action, because it's actually the emotion that drives us to follow through on the the goals that we set. And if you're in a negative state and you're thinking about a goal, maybe you won't do it. But if you can look back at things that you've done and say, well, how was I feeling? What did I do? What's the change I made? What's the emotion behind it? And then from there take action. That's why I see journaling can be very powerful. So that was something I got out of that page, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And literally when Eric says what I got out of that page, some of these points are like a few paragraphs, and
they're powerful though.
They're so powerful. And we were talking about this before we jumped on the call together, is how much information and how to the point Jim Rohn is in his writing, that he is just, it's just fascinating. And the book is really short, but I mean the points that he makes are so major in the grand scheme of things. And I mean, like I said, it's just a phenomenal book. So that's a great point to make about journaling, is how so much of our emotion that we feel throughout the day is forgotten, until we might take the time to write it down in a journal, in a daily journal. So that's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up, Eric, because I would have missed that. The next topic that he discusses is the decision-making process. And the quote that I got from that is, whatever level of action we determine to be correct will ultimately be decided by our philosophy. So that example that I gave about the guy who thinks that he's being underpaid. So the action that he thinks is correct, the amount of action that he thinks is correct when he's thinking that it's not fair that he's being underpaid, is he's going to cut back on work, and he's only going to take the action that he thinks is necessary for him to get paid the amount of pay that he's currently getting paid. And that's his philosophy, is that it's just not fair and he's not going to put in the work. But if he switched that around and started to think that he's going to earn a promotion, that's his philosophy, he's going to start putting in more action and better effort than he did before. Another quote that I wrote down is, what we think determines what we believe. What we believe influences what we choose, and what we choose defines what we are. And what we are attracts what we have. The law of attraction is something that I've, become a major fan of, and, I've used it more as of late, just because of how powerful it is. And if it's something that you guys are interested in, I love the law of attraction. You can literally attract anything into your life, but this quote that I just read from Jim Rohn really puts into perspective how we can change our lives just by changing our philosophy initially. So, I'll read it again. What we think determines what we believe. What we believe influences what we choose. What we choose defines what we are. And what we are attracts what we have. So it all starts with our thinking. And that's exactly, the example of the guy who thinks he's being underpaid. It's a perfect example, because his thought process leads him to believe that he shouldn't do as much work, and what he chooses is to do less work and put in less of an effort, and that defines who he is as an employee for this business. And then because he does that, that attracts what he has, which is the same amount of pay that he's going to be getting paid forever and ever. So if you switch that all around and you start with where you think, it can change the outcome completely. And it's just so fascinating that all you really have to do to change your circumstance is to change your mindset. And if it's that simple, it's like, why don't more people do this? And I'll get to that at the end of this. But it literally, everything that you can be successful in, or any goal that you set for yourself, it starts with your mindset. And sometimes it takes visualization. Sometimes it just takes, a belief in yourself that is almost forced in the beginning. And you almost have to fake it until you make it. believing, for me, believing that making money is easy and money flows to me easily is going to take some time for me to actually 100% fully believe that. But as I start to believe it, and as I start to see the results of me thinking that with intention, that's when it's going to start to come into fruition, and it can happen really quickly. So that's the whole law of attraction that comes into play there. The last two pieces, actually no, not the last two pieces. We got quite a few more points to go through, and I'll wrap this up. But the decision-making process is one of the big ones. The formula for failure is the next tip. So the quote that I have from the book says, failure is the inevitable result of an accumulation of poor thinking and poor choices. Basically, he's saying that failure is nothing more than a few errors in judgment repeated every day. Sometimes we don't even know that we're failing in a certain area of life because it's just something that we do, and we kind of go through the motions on a day-to-day basis. But when you take a step back and you start to adjust your philosophy, your personal philosophy about a certain area of your life, when you have a powerful personal philosophy guiding your every step, you become more aware of your errors in judgment. For example, eating a cookie every day instead of eating an apple is just a poor judgment that, oh yeah, it tastes good, it's not bad. I haven't gained that much weight. Maybe I've gained like 2 pounds in the last month or so, but it can catch up and change really quickly. And imagine if you did make that change of believing that maybe an apple a day keeps the doctor away. That if you started implementing that instead of eating a cookie every day, it does matter. In the long run, it does matter. So you start to be more aware of those lack of judgment things that you do every day when you are more aware of the personal philosophy that you have for things, and when you've evaluated your own personal philosophy. Eric, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I was just going to say that the formula for failure or success, which is basically the opposite of failure, is very interesting because if you were to say that, like, if there's a group of people that are like critics of personal development, one of the things that they would probably say is they would say, well, I don't read any books, I don't go to any seminars, I don't read any health stuff, I don't read any relationship books, but I have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, I have a wife, I make, whatever thousands of dollars a year, and I don't have a disease, and it's all the things that they like don't have, and meaning they either don't have a problem with something they do have, or they don't have something that's considered to be bad. But a couple things that I wrote down is far worse than not reading the books is not even realizing that it matters. And books could be anything. That's just the example he was giving. But he was saying not even realizing that keeping track of your health matters, or not overspending, or spending time with your relationship each day or each week or each month. And that the other quote that I wrote, that I underlined, is failure's most dangerous attribute is its subtlety. Nothing happens in a day or a week or a month when you think of a relationship breaking down or your health breaking down, but it's just it doesn't show, because for someone to say my relationship's breaking down, usually it means you broke up. If your health's breaking down, it means you officially have a disease. For you to have a problem, you either have like debt collectors calling or something that really sticks out to you, and up until that point it doesn't really hit you. And that's why sometimes even when you're going for things, like, wow, this person doesn't do any of this stuff and they seem fine, this person seems fine, and then you find out, like, 3 years later they have a disease, or they broke up, or whatever happened. And you gotta, first of all, you gotta do things for yourself and not for comparing yourself to other people, but just as an observation of other people's behavior. Just because things are fine or okay right now doesn't mean that they're not heading down a path that you don't want them to head down, and they don't want to either. They just don't even realize that it's there. But the big event that changes everything, like stuff like that has happened, and people are like, oh, is that surprising to you? It's like, well, that's kind of surprising, but I mean, they whatever the example is, they haven't worked on that area of their life in years and years and years, so I don't know, I guess it's not that surprising. So those are two quotes, and I just think that that's very important. And I know you're going to get to the formula of success and the rest of it, but same thing, one of the reasons people don't follow through is because it's at first there's a lot of progress, but over time, the better you get at something, the less the progress is noticeable. just real quick, I was thinking of this example this weekend. We were in New Jersey, and I was out for a run, and the example was when I was in high school freshman year, I was on the track team, and my coach was trying to figure out what event I would be good at. So he tried me in a bunch of different events, the 800, the 2 mile, the mile. So when he threw me in the mile, I ran a 5:15 mile, 5 minutes and 15 seconds, and I didn't even like try because for the first couple laps I was just hanging with one of my friends. And he's like, if you could do that, not even trying, you could do a lot better. Over the course of the rest of the season, I dropped from 5:15 to my best rate was 4:49, and I was like one of the top in the state for the mile. At the end of the season, the coach said to me, "Oh yeah, you probably think you're pretty good, but believe it or not, you didn't actually gain those 26 seconds because of hard work. You gained it because you're actually that talented in terms of your running ability, and you just hadn't been able to run enough to prove what you could do." He said, every second that you drop from here to the rest of your high school career, you'll have to earn by working 10 times harder than you did for the entire season. I was like, yeah, sure, coach, whatever. And I went the entire next year working my butt off and not running a lower time one time until the very last race. I beat it by 3 seconds, and that was the lowest time I ever ran in my life. And it was funny because you could get frustrated. You'd be like, I'm working harder than I did the year before and haven't even beaten the time. And only once did I actually beat the time. It was by 3 seconds. And that's why people give up, because on the opposite of failure with success, again, you don't notice the progress as much, but it does happen if you keep going.
Yeah, that's a great example, and it reminds me of the I don't know what it's called, but when a business starts up, usually their results go up really quickly, and then there's a point where they plateau, and that's the point where some businesses will either go up gradually as time progresses because they continue to grow and improve and make improvements on what they're doing, like your example with running that faster mile. If you had stopped working hard, you would have lost time on your mile, for example. So, with a business, if they're progressively getting better, then they hit that plateau mark. Some businesses, like I said, continue to grow and continue to find ways to improve, while others will say, well, we got to the best we're going to be. We might as well just kind of slide right now at this point. But they end up declining because they don't realize the work that they put in leading up to that point. They still have to continue to work that hard. So that definitely is a good segue into the formula for success, because the formula for success is, in Jim Rohn's words, a few simple disciplines practiced every day. And like Eric said, and like I've said, a lot of times you can't really notice the changes that are happening in your life when you make certain changes personally that you decide to do. For example, reading every day. That's not something that you're going to notice a big change in right away. And I would even give it 6 months of reading every day for you to really notice a difference in how you think about things and how your mindset changes into a more positive mindset every day. But to change ourselves from how we are to how we want to be, we must begin with those few basics that affect the way we think. And that was one of the quotes that Jim Rohn said. I'll repeat that again. To change ourselves from how we are now to how we want to be, we must begin with those few basics that affect the way we think. The person you are today is a result of decisions you made in the past. So if you think about it that way, the person that you want to become tomorrow, it's automatically going to be the decisions you make today. So why not make better decisions today? It's really that simple. And the formula for success, the reason why some people don't succeed in something that they really set a goal for, is simply because they don't take the small action steps that it takes to succeed. And they make that decision in the beginning. And it's like Josh had shared earlier, how you want to finish what you started and really be disciplined to do so. And if you have a goal set for yourself that you have, let's say, in 3 years or maybe 1 year, maybe 6 months, start today. There's no better time than now. You're only going to become the person who is deserving of achieving that goal if you start to make changes today in your life. Disciplines tend to multiply. I think we talked about this last week, how once you start to discipline yourself to do certain things, other things tend to be easier that you didn't do before. Everything affects everything else. Every new discipline affects not only the discipline that we've already begun to practice, but it also um, it determines the disciplines that we will soon adopt. So if you have a discipline of, let's say, working out every day, it's funny because when you work out, you get more energy. And I notice whenever I don't work out for like a couple of days, my energy is so low. All I want to do is sleep. But some people think, oh, I'm tired, I should sleep more. Well, sometimes you're tired because your body is used to not moving around a lot, and you're tired because your body is just tired from not moving around a lot. So it's this whole cycle. So if you get up and move around, you'll want to move around more during the day. So that's why working out is so important. But it's funny because when you start to discipline yourself to do that one simple thing, which is working out every day or for 5 days a week or whatever the case is, you start to find more energy to do other things that you wanted to discipline yourself to do before, like reading. Like you can stay up an extra half an hour a night to read because you worked out that morning and you have more energy throughout the day. So it's disciplines multiply, and that's an example of that. Success and happiness are easy to achieve. That's one of the things. It's kind of like the belief about money that I was talking about earlier. It's easy to do the things that success and happiness require, and it really is easy. And some people just don't do it because it's also easy not to do it, if that makes sense. The danger of neglect. So when you neglect to do something every day that you set in you set a goal for yourself and you say, I'm going to do this every day to hit this goal that I have. How many days go by when you're like, I'll do it tomorrow? Or it's so easy to just skip it for the day. But when you learn to be disciplined because you have a philosophy, a personal philosophy of achieving something in your life, you will start to not skip those easy action steps that you decided that you wanted to take. I said this earlier, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. If that philosophy is true, why don't people eat an apple a day? To keep the doctor away, because it's easy not to eat an apple a day to keep the doctor away. So aside from it's easy to succeed, it's easy to do the things to succeed, but it's also easy not to do them. So that's why there's such a difference in people who do succeed and people who don't. Eric, jump in.
Well, what I was going to say is that the reason I think he says that it's easy to be successful and happy is, one, because of what you said. You have to say that to yourself so that you believe it, so that it's true. And the second part is that it really is easy. Excuse me. The problem, though, is that even if the action that it is very simple and easy, like getting up and going for a walk every day, or going for a run, or meditating for 10 minutes, or journaling, you're comparing it against doing nothing, which doing something is always harder than doing nothing. You guys get what I'm saying? So even though it actually isn't that hard, you still have to do something, whereas failure is created by usually not doing something at all, which is very easy to do. You say, I'm going to do this and this weekend. You don't make a schedule for it. You're on the couch. You're watching game after game. Football will be on pretty soon. And then it's like, well, I'll just watch this football game and then I'll get to it, whatever. And so on and so forth. This kind of that neglect. That's actually a perfect example. For anyone that's really, really, really into football, people sometimes do things where they'll come to the weekend during football season, they'll do nothing on Saturday because they're tired from their work week, and then on Sunday they'll watch football all day, and then on Monday morning they'll be behind on all this stuff they had to do and be like, I had no time this weekend to do anything. But mentally they needed a day of rest, and then even though watching football is resting too, they're like, I have to watch football because it's football season. So in your head you create these things where you have to do nothing for a period of time, and that leads to neglect. Not saying you can't watch all the football games, but you got to schedule time for the things that are important to you too.
Exactly. And one of the things that I learned to start saying to myself, instead of saying I didn't have time or I don't have time for that, is changing it to that's not a priority right now. And see how that feels when you say, oh, I didn't have time to work out versus it's not a priority to work out. It like hits home a little bit more when you say it's not a priority right now, because wait a second, it is a priority. I want to be healthy. I want to have more energy. I got to make this a priority. You'll find time to do the things that are most important to you. So, and sometimes if you say you don't have time for something and you say to yourself, you know, that's not a priority for me right now, maybe it's true. Maybe that is something that you can let, you know, get off of your shoulders right now because it isn't a priority right now. But to make that distinction of it's not that you don't have time, it's that it really isn't a priority, that's the biggest difference. So that's the the danger of neglect. Jim Rohn says neglect is like an infection. Left unchecked, it will spread throughout your entire system of disciplines, and it will eventually lead to a complete breakdown of a potentially joy-filled and prosperous human life. That's pretty deep, but it's true. I mean, when you neglect something that's really important to you, it can start eating away at your life, and it'll take away your joy. And the biggest thing that you want to do is, you know, everybody wants to be happy, and I think that's the goal for a lot of people, is just to be happy and feel a sense of joy in what they do. And to know that it's a choice, and that when you make it a point to actually do the things that make you happy instead of neglecting them, that'll be the biggest game changer in your life, in any area of your life. The last point of this chapter, and I can't wait to read the next chapter. I've already read it, but I can't wait to reread it. Is the last point he makes is learn to listen to the right voice. So the first step to realizing a well-balanced life lies in becoming the master of our ship, the captain of our soul, by developing a sound personal philosophy. So with this being the last point, and this is where I'll kind of wrap things up because we've gone a little longer than an hour. In your mind, you know, we have thousands, tens of thousands of thoughts every single day, and for us to be able to listen to the thoughts that matter the most and change the thoughts that need to be changed into a more positive outlook on something, that's when you start to see a difference in your life. So for the simplest example that I can give is when you wake up in the morning, if your first thought is, oh, it's morning already, that is going to, you know, make the rest of your day pretty much gloomy, in my opinion. But if you wake up in the morning and you have the thought of, oh my gosh, thank you for this day, I have another day to really go after something and see opportunities, and I'm curious to what this day is going to bring, that's when you start to have a shift in different areas of your life. When you go to your job and you start to think, I love my job, you know, the work that I do is important, the people that I work with are great, you start to actually see that come to fruition in your life. So I think listening to the right voice in your mind is so important to build the powerful and sound personal philosophy to be able to succeed in any area of your life that you want to succeed in. That's all I have for the book discussion. I don't know if you guys have anything else to add. If not, I can. Eric, I saw your microphone go off.
I was just going to say this has been a exciting discussion, and as you know, I could talk about this stuff all day long. But one thing, I actually wrote this in the chat to you guys, is starting to say I get to versus I have to with everything that you do, because it puts you in a state of gratitude. Like you might say, like with Josh, for example, you know, it's you know, he's doing a bunch of jobs, he's helping people, he's contributing to customers, but sometimes, since it's not exactly what you want, you might say, I have to do this for now until I get to do what I want. But if you say, hey, I get to do this stuff now and I enjoy this, then you also will be excited when you get to do the next thing. So the more you can say that, the faster I think you're actually going to get to your goals. And your philosophy sets the stage for everything. And in our book, The 8 Mandates of Personal Leadership, we did the first mandate was perspective, which is basically the same thing, because it's like it's your beliefs and how do you look at life, and from there you can create everything. So I think, you know, these 5 principles build on each other, and if you don't have the right philosophy, it doesn't matter what the other ones are, because you'll just fall back to this, because you'll think everything happens based on your circumstances instead of the way you look at it. So I've had a great time with this discussion. I'm looking forward to, are we doing the next next 2 chapters this next time?
Yeah, I think we'll go to the next 2 chapters because they're I mean it's I don't know if Josh you think the same thing, but they're pretty quick reads. I mean they're pretty quick and easy to get through. Not really, they're not long anyway. But Josh, do you have anything to add in terms of anything that I talked about at the end there?
I think I had something and I completely forget what it was, but
That's
that's
a
all
really
right.
good point, Josh. Well, I'm excited for the next couple chapters, and I think it'll be a cool discussion. And I think as our group continues and as we have more people and stuff, the reward is that as you start to compound your action, you compound the ideas, you compound the books that you read, all of a sudden, very slowly, you'll start to make progress, and then you'll see a big burst in results from all of us, and that comes from the consistent actions and having the right philosophy that he talks about. So it's cool to be reading a book, but it's the outcome from it that's going to show that we're actually doing something with what our group's about.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I love the point, Eric, that you made about saying to yourself, I get to do this instead of I have to do this. That's something I'm going to use right away because too often, especially because we live in America and it's a first world country, you say so often we say I have to do this instead of I get to because we have so many privileges and so many great things available to us in this country and in this lifetime that not everyone gets to have. So I think that's a huge way to kind of shift your mindset into a mindset of gratitude instead of saying that you have to do things or you already have the things that you have. So because gratitude brings on more blessings in your life. I really appreciate you guys joining in. I know that we're only on week 1 of the book, and I'm excited to see what else this book has to offer, and what other things and ideas that you guys can add in the future. So just to kind of close up the call, and you guys can share anything after I kind of say the closing remarks. Um, as you're watching this, and if you're somehow you came upon this platinum membership Live the Movie Crew page and you're thinking about maybe joining because you think it's a pretty cool group of people and you want to gain the benefits of being a part of a group like this, I would say click the button below right away just to learn more about this platinum membership and see how you can start to be involved and set goals and have somebody hold you accountable, because sometimes all it takes is for somebody else to believe in you before you really truly believe in yourself, and that's what we're here for. And the only other thing I would say is to live the movie.
Yeah. I'll say one more thing, then I got to go run because we're going for a walk. But what I was going to say is the power of a group like this obviously takes a little bit of a commitment with time to read your book, be on the Hangouts, and all that stuff, and a little bit of a financial commitment as well. But it's interesting that people don't realize that the very thing that might be difficult for them to do is the thing that's holding them back from where they want to be. If you have a goal and the only reason you're not following through on it is you don't have someone to hold you accountable and you're not finding the time for it, then you actually have to join a group. People are, I do some one-on-one coaching. I used to do a lot more, and sometimes people either wouldn't join or they would quit because they would say, I don't have the money to pay or I don't have the time for it. And it's like, that's exactly why you need to have a coach, because if you don't have the time, everyone has enough time, you're just choosing to prioritize different things differently. And if you don't have the money, then you clearly need someone to help you figure out what you can do to actually earn more money. And the only way you're going to do that is the accountability of spending money on something that you have to follow through on to be able to learn and make more money. So it's very counterintuitive, but most things that make you the successful people really successful is a little counterintuitive to what everybody else was doing, because if everybody else was doing it, everybody would be fit and happy and healthy and all that stuff, and we all know that's not the case at the moment. But I appreciate you guys. Live the movie. Enjoy your week, and I got to go for my walk, but I'll see you guys on the next Hangout.
Yeah, we'll see you guys.
See you, everybody.
Guys.